Over the last few weeks, I did a series of sermons about the power of vulnerability and trust. Then last Sunday, I did a sermon on making friends with your inner monsters. For those of you who are here, you know what that was. Others are probably scratching their heads. Today I thought I'd make a change of pace and talk about something that doesn't make anybody uncomfortable or feel awkward. And so I decided to preach on the healing power of touch. Because no one ever felt awkward or uncomfortable around the subject of human touch. Right? The gospel is all about touch today. Jesus is walking through this crowd of people, being jostled by the crowd, making his way through. And a woman with an issue of blood reaches out and touches the hem of his garment. And he stops and he says, "Who touched me?" Not who touched my garment, by the way. Who touched me? We don't know. The gospel doesn't say if he felt a tug or he had some extrasensory awareness of his surroundings that allowed him to sense that touch. But it said, "Who touched me?" So what are you talking about? The people touching you all over there. The crowd is pressing upon you. What do you mean, who touched you? Somebody touched me because I felt power go out from me. And so the woman, realizing what she had done had been revealed, and Christ knew what had happened, of course, but he wanted her to reveal it. She told her story. Now, Dr. Dan Hinshaw, who's visited our parish, he is a physician who focuses on palliative care, and he recently released a book entitled Touch and the Healing of the World. And it's a theological reflection on the power of touch and the healing power of touch. And it comes quite a bit out of his personal experience as a physician attending to Father Roman Braga of blessed memory in his last couple of years of life as he declined and struggled with some incredibly difficult cancer. And how touch really did play a role in their care and their kindness towards him. So it's a whole book, and it's a wonderful book. And I'm hoping to draw some of that and share it with you over the next couple weeks. Today I want to talk about this story, the healing of the woman with the issue of blood, and the power of touch that comes with faith. Dr. Hinshaw points out that this touch is a little bit different than the other touches in the gospel, right? There are many types of touches described in the gospel. There's the touch of the Mother of God embracing the child, right? The maternal touch. That's the first type of touch that we learn. As children, we learn the value of human touch from our parents, hopefully. Hopefully. Not always, but hopefully. That's the ideal. Sometimes our parents touch us brusquely or harshly in disciplining us, and that's not very pleasant. But hopefully, the amount of touch that we receive from them that is nurturing and kind outweighs all those experiences, and we get a sense of security and affirmation and comfort and awareness that we are loved from them. But many of us, sooner or later, that falls away. Everyone touches a baby, right? It's like we all have a free pass to touch babies when we see babies, unless we're dirty, right? Wash your hands first, at least. But as kids get a little bit older, then we maybe ruffle their hair, and then when they're a little bit older, we might do that. I had Romanian relatives always pinch my cheek until I was probably 25. It's culturally dependent, too. That's another issue we have. But as we grow older, we get less and less touch from our family, less and less touch from brothers and sisters, maybe a little bit. Maybe it gets a little colder. And as we grow older, it diminishes. And that's really unfortunate. And I think that's a real cultural problem we have as Americans, that we don't have the same kind of physicality with each other as many people do in many other cultures. Hang around Orthodox people enough, you'll probably do a lot of kissing. Kissing on the side of the face 2 or 3 times, hugging. It's nice. It's a good thing. And of course, look at you all, Americans, sitting in your pews, but you like space, don't you? You're not cozying up, right? Pressing into each other. Why not? Why are you keeping such space between yourselves? Are you not brothers and sisters? Are you uncomfortable feeling even that touch? But there's another type of touch which is the touch that comes with intention. And there's actually a difference in how our brain processes the experience of touch when it's done with intention, and depending on the intention. So the type of touch that Christ experiences moving through the crowd, the kind of experience we have walking through a crowd of people, incidental touch, our brain doesn't really process that in the same way as when somebody specifically puts their hand on us or touches us in a meaningful way. You think, in this gospel, Jesus says, somebody touched me, and she had only touched the hem of his garment. I will tell you, when I walk around, and I'm sure any priest will tell you, walking in the great entrance, and as you walk by, somebody you feel a little bit of that tug on your vestment, maybe, as somebody reaches up to touch your vestment, you feel that. And it's a different, your brain immediately processes that as a different kind of touch because you realize there is a faith component to that. There's an intentionality to that touch. It's not that they just happen to be sticking out in the aisleway and you ran into them or something. It's that, no, somebody actually went out of their way to make a connection physically, tactile. And you sense that. And I think all of you, if you were here at the very beginning and we did that memorial service, the beautiful tradition that's particular to Romanians at the end of the memorial services is the lifting up of the bread and the koliva, but also if you can't actually be there to touch the plate, you touch somebody else who's touching the plate or touch somebody else touching somebody else, like the game Electricity when we were kids, right? As long as somebody's touching home base, you're safe. And that's a wonderful image. It reminds me of childhood games. But you feel the difference. That's a different kind of touch. There's a comfort in touch in that. There's a clear sense that it's okay. This is a safe touch. We live in a society which is very scared of touch because so much touch, first of all, we're starved for that kind of touch, so we don't trust it when it happens. We're afraid of it. But we're also in a community, in a culture right now, which is it's hyper-violent and it's hyper-sexualized. And that so much touch comes from a place of either anger or selfishness, greedy grasping, or punitive action, right? Even the fact that in this day and age, an acceptable way to greet each other is the fist bump says something about our psyche. I like the fist bump, it doesn't bother me, but it's kind of a weird image, isn't it? It's like, that's how we greet each other, with a fist. It's odd. It just doesn't make sense. That's why you shake hands, you grasp hands to show that your hand is not balled. It's not holding a weapon. It's not in any position of violence. And of course, in the history of the church, we have what's called the kiss of peace, which is supposed to be done during the liturgy. In some churches, they do it. It would be awkward, I think, if we tried to just start it again. You see the deacons will come out, if they're two deacons, they'll come out during the creed and kiss each other before the altar. That's kind of the carryover of that practice. But in old times, everybody in the church exchanged the kiss of peace with the person next to them. Now, because they were a modest people and aware of issues, women were sitting with women and men were sitting with men, and so there wasn't any awkwardness in that sense to it. But it would be a good thing if we did a little more of that, if we at least shook hands or something. The touch of faith that the woman has is, you could say it's a selfish, grasping touch because she wants something, but it's a touch that comes out of hope and love and intentionality in what she's doing. It's not just an accidental touch. And so Jesus reveals her faith, reveals her good intention, reveals her love that propels her to do this, even in many ways at risk to herself. And he does it in other places in the gospel. There's the encounter with the leper, where the leper says, if you wish, you can make me well. And interestingly, the phrasing of the gospel says, Jesus touched the leper and then said, I will be cleansed. You'd think that he would have said, be cleansed, and he would have been cleansed, and then he would have touched him. Right? No, he touched him first. He touched the leper in his leprosy. first. And then he was healed. Then he was cleansed. Jesus did that kind of vulnerability touching him. But again, also with consent, right? So I'm going to encourage you over the next few weeks to develop an awareness of the need of touch that we have in our lives. Practice healthy touch in your life with consent, with people you know, and reach out and greet people physically, tactilely, with an open hand, those that you may not know. On Tuesday, our nation is going to the voting polls to vote. Voting is a wonderful expression of civil war. It is a way to resolve a lack of consensus. That's all. It's not a perfect thing. If we had consensus, we wouldn't need a vote. We wouldn't need to go to the polls, right? Consensus is the way we don't kill each other to solve our problems. And voting is the way in between those two. Voting is the way in which we wage war friendly and civilly against our fellow citizens to accomplish our ends. So don't think you're doing some noble thing. It's your civic duty to not kill your neighbor to solve your problems, to resolve them peacefully. That's all you're doing. But it's not a sign that we've figured it out. It's not a sign of true civility. True civility comes from really loving our neighbor, really loving them. So I would encourage you, before you use your tactile powers to press buttons or poke holes or whatever, however it works when you're voting, vote with your hand by greeting a stranger, greeting a neighbor, comforting somebody, showing people that it's not just an exercise in civil war, but also an exercise in maybe civilization building or neighbor making, because we should do that too. We should really be, if we really want to solve the problems that we're having right now, we really need to get over this fear of others. And we need to start to reach out to each other and be kind to those that we don't know, that we maybe don't like, that we don't think like for sure, and express that in concrete, tangible ways, which begins with a friendly touch, given in consent, offered in a position of peace. That's what we need to do. So that's your homework for this week. I'll probably come up with something for next week for you, but it is homework, and I want you to really think about it and try it. Feel, when you touch somebody this way, feel as the Lord did. I felt power going out of me. It is. The power of love is going out of you to heal and to be kind and to help and to nurture others, the same way that it came from, hopefully, your parents or your loved ones when you were a child. You can return that now to somebody else. And power is also going out of you, the power of anger, of dissipating your desire to be in a position of power over. By offering touch, you're putting yourself in a position of vulnerability, a position of being rejected, of being distrusted, of being questioned. That's okay. Let that power go out of you too. You don't need that to be happy in your life. What you need is to love. May Christ our true God have mercy on us and save us. Amen.